Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel and my very first YouTube video ever. So thank you for watching. Today I want to talk about how apples make you fat. And first and foremost I want to say that I don't think apples make you fat at all. But it was a catchy title, so I rolled with it. Let me give you a little background knowledge on why I'm talking about apples specifically. I recently found out that I'm pregnant, and upon finding this out, a lot of people told me I wasn't going to be able to continue my weightlifting regimen because I was pregnant, which is false, by the way. And I came across this mom who had done extensive weightlifting while she was up to 8 months pregnant. I thought she was really inspirational. So I found her on Facebook and started following her. I thought she'd be good motivation. And I was scrolling through my Facebook feed one day, and she had posted a picture of food. She was going grocery shopping. And I read the caption, the food is typical, maybe what you'd want to call a clean eater's diet. Meats, lean meats, some complex carbohydrates in the form of brown rice and the like. But in her caption, she's talking about all the food, and she's like, oh, this is all mine, except for the apples, because apples make you fat. That, I kid you not, was in capital letters on this lady's page. I commented giving my 2 cents and then immediately took her off my friends list because you don't need that kind of stupid in your life. So I was really worked up about that because I read through this list of comments, and there's just, I would probably say close to 100 comments agreeing with her. And then I guess later she changed her story that you couldn't lose fat eating apples because they're so high in sugar, and all these people were claiming how high in sugar apples are. So I decided to kind of roll with this whole idea. It was actually the second time that week I had heard that fruit was bad for you and made you fat. And I guess I'm a little naive. I always assumed that most people realize that fruit is a fantastic food for you. It's full of vitamins and minerals, which are essential. Good source of fiber. And if you're a clean eater, it really doesn't get much cleaner than a piece of fruit. You cut it up and eat it. So, people are crazy. But anyways, back on topic. So apples and their sugar content that people are all worked up about. So, fruits in general are made up of fructose, which is a type of sugar or a carbohydrate. Fructose is a monosaccharide. There's 3 classifications of carbohydrates. There's the monosaccharides, the disaccharides, and the polysaccharides. So a polysaccharide is going to be a string of carbs, usually known as a complex carb. So, brown rice, oatmeal, anything that you would consider a slow digesting complex carb, that's going to be the polysaccharide. And they're slow digesting because your body has to work harder to break all of those bonds down because there's so many carbohydrate molecules hooked together. But fructose, being a monosaccharide, it's just one. It's just one molecule of the sugar. So it's a lot quicker to be digested for your body, so you get that sugar a little bit faster. So right now you might be thinking, okay, so the sugar digests faster, that's bad. It raises my insulin levels and makes me store fat. Well, there's multiple reasons why this isn't true. So first off, a Braeburn apple, a medium-sized Braeburn apple, has about 16 grams of carbs. 16. So if you do the math, and 1 gram of carbs equals 4 calories, that's going to put you roughly at, 84 calories, roughly, give or take on the size of the apple. And also keep in mind, when you eat an apple, a majority of people don't eat the whole thing. They eat the outside, and they leave the core. You know, some people eat the whole thing. I've seen it done, but so you're not even getting that entire amount of sugar. You're just getting whatever portion you're eating, which you can figure out by weighing your apple prior to eating, and then eat whatever you want. And then when you are done, just weigh the core and then take the difference. Simple math to do that. So anyways, yes, 16 grams of carbs, which is nothing. If 16 grams of carbs is going to break your diet, you have way more problems than a freaking apple. That is ridiculous. And it's ludicrous to say you can't lose weight by eating 16 grams of carbs. It makes no sense whatsoever, because the body goes off of thermodynamics with food. And so if you're eating food in a deficit and you have a good workout routine, an apple is not going to make any difference. In fact, it might help you because of the fiber and water content and the nutrients, which are fantastic. So I decided, after looking at that, a lot of people might say, okay, well, there's not a lot of sugar, but it's fruit sugar, so it's going to spike my insulin levels, it's going to have a high glycemic index number, and this is also false. If you actually look up the glycemic index, medium Braeburn apple falls at a 32, around that range. Sorry, I wrote notes so I wouldn't forget the details. For 120 grams, 32. Now, if you're not, first off, let me say, for those of you not familiar with the glycemic index, what it is an index of carbohydrates used to determine how quickly the carbs will increase your blood sugar. And it's measured by comparing it to how much 1 gram of pure glucose would raise your blood sugar. So the 1 gram of pure glucose is at a 1, or you could look at it as a 100, because it's a scale of basically 1 to 100. But the absolute value is that glucose. And then everything's measured against that. So there's a low, a medium, and a high. And the low range is anything below a 55. So first off, a Braeburn apple is low on the glycemic index. And this is partially because of the water content and the fiber, which makes it, that takes longer to digest. And apples are, from what I've researched, actually a better source of fiber than most of the normal fruits that we would eat. There are other fruits that have more fiber content, but apples are definitely not bad in that category. So I decided to keep doing a little bit more research, because people are getting hell-bent on this. And really, it's people I've noticed who claim to be like the clean eaters, or I'm in contest prep, so I can't eat fruit, there's too much sugar. And I've actually experienced this when I very first started getting into the whole fitness world. I hired a trainer, I paid her obscene amounts of money, which was ridiculous. Please don't ever do that. And she was a horrible trainer. And she wouldn't let me have fruit. Except eventually she let me have like half of a banana after I worked out. And then there was the whole you can't have fruit after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'll address that at a later time. But so I've seen this, I've experienced this firsthand, and I love fruit, and so that was horrible for me. And I'm sure a lot of other people really restrict their fruit intake because they're worried about the sugar content. So on that note, I decided to look up different carbohydrates that quote-unquote clean eaters are very fond of. So I looked up white rice, brown rice, Oatmeal, which I didn't write all the specifics down for, my mistake, and quinoa. Quinoa is a big thing right now. And at first I want to say, none of those foods are bad. Those foods are all really great for you. Actually, no food is bad for you. I just want to use them as reference points for my comparison, just to point out how retarded saying apples make you fat are. So, white rice. White rice has a couple different glycemic index ratings based on the type of rice that it is. So the majority of the rice that you would eat is probably going to be a short grain, short grain white rice, which falls at a 72. So I believe 72 is on the high, is a higher glycemic index. But if you get long grain white rice, that's a 55, which is still pretty low. And that's for 150 grams, and that includes about 38 grams of carbs for that 150 grams. And the apple was roughly at about 120 grams. So the amount is slightly different. However, if you did the math to make them a comparable amount or the same amount, it's going to be not a huge difference. They're going to be either the same, like comparable, or the apple's going to win. So right here, from the get-go, 1638. That's almost twice the amount, or excuse me, that's over twice the amount of carbs in this rice that is in an apple. Okay, so you might say, well, I don't eat white rice. I only eat brown rice because it's what I do. Alright, fine. Let's look at brown rice. Brown rice is roughly about a 55, which is the same as the long grain white rice, which totally shows that you don't have to eat brown rice. You can eat white rice, it's hard to say, multiple times back to back. But it's actually not a huge difference like people seem to think. And they always come back to this whole, well, it raises my insulin levels argument, and I don't know what to say to those people. You cannot talk to them. But that's also for 140 grams, and it's got around 42 grams of carbs. And by the way, all these statistics that I'm getting, if you go to the glycemic index website, that's where I'm getting all of these. So I got them all off the same website. I didn't pick and choose what website I got the information from. So if you have questions or you want to look up something of your own, I don't remember the exact website's name, but if you just Google glycemic index, should be the top choice. So then I looked at quinoa. Quinoa is also great. It's got a lot of protein. It's complete protein, which is great, and a slow digesting carb, a complex carb. And it seems to be something that a lot of people are kind of turning to as an alternative to maybe the rices or any other kinds of like starch. So that was the last thing that I looked up, and quinoa has a range of 35 to 53 for also 150 grams. So, you know, once again, it's either going to be about the same, maybe a little bit higher than the apple. And so it just goes to show, like, those are really popular types of food. Oh, and I forgot the oatmeal. The oatmeal was at a 58 on the glycemic index. And I forgot to write the amount of carbs. I'm sorry. But, so looking at all these numbers, you can see that an apple is either around the same or lower than all of these things. So, going back to the original point of apples making you fat, it makes no sense. There is literally no sense behind this statement. The woman who said it seems to be a pretty prominent figure in the fitness realm and her own little kind of workout domain. I think she's a CrossFitter. And from the comments I read, I think she has a husband who's like a nutritionist or something. And they were using their reasonings as reasoning such as, well, I have a six-pack, so I know what I'm talking about. And that's just stupid. Like, just because your body is aesthetic or aesthetically pleasing, yes, what you're doing may be working to reduce your body fat or build your muscle. I'm not saying that it's not working. And if you feel like that's the right way to do it for you, then be my guest. But putting that kind of information out to the public, and then me seeing all of these people just fall to her feet and agreeing with her, you're in no position to say things like that. To tell people to completely ignore an entire food group that's extremely healthy for you, very good for you. And you know, people look up to those kinds of figures, so I really wanted to make a video about this and give my 2 cents and explain why the whole theory was stupid. And a little bit more on that is kind of going back to the whole thermodynamics and the deficit. If your calorie intake, well, first of all, you have a maintenance intake for life functions called your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. So this is your rate of calories you burn in a 24-hour period, and they generalize it as this is what you would burn laying down. So that's the calories you need to maintain life, you know, brain function, whatever is going on in your body. I'm making a baby, so mine's harder or higher. But on top of that, you have, you know, it dips down when you sleep because it's, you know, however long you sleep, a period of inactivity. And then it increases during the day when you're actually doing things. So they usually laying down is kind of a medium between those two. But then if you're active, like if you have a workout program you stick to, that's going to put an extra amount of calories that you burn throughout the day onto that. So when you are doing a fitness program, or excuse me, a diet program, and you're trying to lose weight, ideally, for most people I hope, you're trying to lose fat and preserve your lean muscle mass. I mean, if you're not trying to do that, then you go with your bad self, but I would say the majority of people are trying to lose fat. So taking into account your basal metabolic rate is a good place to start, but if you immediately subtract from that amount, you're going to be left with a really big deficit because you're not taking into account any of your extra activity that you're doing throughout the day that may be more elevated than the basal metabolic rate is accounting for. So there's calculators and formulas to help calculate that extra amount depending on your activity level, how often you work out, how hard you work out, that kind of thing. That's taken into account. So then you get a deficit. It can be a small deficit, maybe 200 calories, maybe more. You don't want anything too drastic because when you start doing a very drastic deficit, like a lot of people do with competition prep, they'll eat like 1,000 calories a day for a female, which is extremely unhealthy. And please don't do that if anyone tells you to do that. But if you start getting to that large deficit, your body isn't going to have enough fuel. You're not going to give it enough fuel to give you energy for your workouts, and not only that, but like just life in general, breathing, thinking, whatever takes calories and these amazing bodies of ours, you're not going to have enough fuel for that to happen. So your body most likely will start preserving your fat, because fat is such a dense, concentrated amount of calories. It's 9 calories per gram versus carbs and protein, which are both only 4. So it's over double. Your body wants to preserve that because that's like its extra storage of really good food. So it's going to hold on to that, and instead it's going to start breaking down other parts of your body. So what I would call the lean mass. And lean mass doesn't always just mean your muscles. Your bones also fit into that, because your bones are a mass in your body that's not fat. So it's going to start taking away from your muscles. It's going to put you into a catabolic state, break down your muscles for the protein. It'll actually take things like protein, your body will, and then it'll actually transfer to glucose, because glucose is the body's preferred method of energy. So it holds on to the fat, breaks down your muscle, all those gains you spent however long making, gone, because you're starving yourself. And then girls often, even guys actually, it's not just girls, I'm sorry for stereotyping, but girls and guys will then do hours of cardio on top of this starving diet. And that does absolutely nothing good for your body. Nothing good at all. You, first of all, don't have enough carbs to be doing 2+ hours of cardio a day. And once you start doing cardio, your body is not getting any sort of adequate stress amounts on your muscular system for it to actually build muscle. So cardio actually doesn't really do much when it comes to building any muscle. It's primarily used for fat loss, but like I've already stated, if you're already in this kind of like starvation mode, your body's going to hold on to that fat and break down other tissues in your body to use for fuel. And another thing with cardio worth mentioning, and the metabolizing of fat, is your body actually metabolizes fat better with carbs. So all these people go on these super low carb diets, I'm not going to eat any carbs, I'm just going to eat a bunch of protein and fat, and my body's going to turn to the protein or the fat, they hope for the fat, for energy. And I mean, this does happen. I mean, your body doesn't have much of a choice. You're not giving it any carbs, so it will start turning to fat for energy, but that can potentially be dangerous with the way, it's called ketosis, when that happens and you're burning fat for fuel. So I would recommend seeing a physician if you're planning on doing this whole no carb, low carb thing. Really, you should talk to a physician about any sort of big diet change that you plan on doing, because none of us are doctors or registered dietitians. I am not a registered dietitian. I can give you advice. I can give you what I have learned through research, but I am not a dietitian. I am not a doctor. So take that for what that's worth. Okay, well, I think I've rambled on enough about my various things. I really just had a bone to pick with that whole comment, and it bothered me for weeks. And I just want to try and get better information out there. Eat apples, eat 2 apples a day. Eat an apple and a banana. Go for it. Go crazy. So, thank you again for watching my video. I am so very grateful. Check out my Facebook page. It's just, facebook.com/Q10fitness, and follow my YouTube site for more videos in the future, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks!